right, welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. For quite some time now, Mr. President has been embarking on the economic shuttles around the world, of course, to rake in investments for our country. But specifically for today, we're going to focus on the takeaways of Mr. President's visit to Saudi Arabia. Before we bring in our guest, let's see what Benny Adams has put together in this background report.
The four-day Future Investment Initiative, tagged Davos in the Desert, offered President Buhari a platform to interface with global leaders, investors, and innovators, alongside President Mamadou Yusufu of Niger Republic and Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya. They deliberated on what's next for Africa, how investment and trade will transform the continent into the next great economic success story. President Buhari shared his administration's vigorous implementation of key reforms in the oil and gas sector, agriculture, and the country's vast human resources. U.S. Treasury Secretary at the event raised the possibility of investing in Nigeria under the new United States International Development Finance Corporation, which provides $60 billion for investments in developing nations. The president told the Americans that Nigeria will leverage on the U.S. facility to address current challenges confronting her power sector, as well as general upgrade of infrastructure. The game changer for the Nigerian delegation was the iconic meeting with the Crown Prince, Mohammed ibn Salman, who, in a special gesture, visited President Buhari in his abode, and like Aramco, he asked, what can they do to assist Nigeria? Adding that Nigeria is already destined to be one of the top 20 economies of the world, and reiterated Saudi's eagerness to support Nigeria to the top. Before he left the kingdom, both leaders reviewed the historically strong and friendly relations between the two countries and looked at ways through which it can be formalized, and therefore agreed to set up a joint Saudi-Nigeria Strategic Council to be made up of government officials and businessmen from both countries, and to focus on economic growth and development, investment in oil and non-oil sectors, and security cooperation.
All right, thank you very much, Benny Adams, for that backgrounder. We have guests with us here in the Abuja studios, as well as at other remote locations, and we shall be introducing them right away. With us here in the Abuja studios, let's welcome His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kebbi State, Alhaji Atiku Bagudu, who was on the President's entourage on the visit to Saudi Arabia. Excellency, pleasure.
Good morning, thank you.
On the program. Now, also here with us in the studios is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media, Malam Garba Shehu, who also was with the President to Saudi Arabia. Malam Garba, pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, I appreciate.
Okay.
All right, Kingsley, we have two ambassadors, one former, one current, 7 currently. So we'll begin with the current ambassador, who is joining us via Skype from Saudi Arabia. He's Nigeria's ambassador to the Saudi. Your Excellency, Ambassador Issa Dudu, thank you very much for joining us for this program.
Thank you very much.
And from there, we move to Maiduguri Studios, where we have seated Nigeria's former ambassador to Pakistan, Your Excellency Ambassador Dauda Dandali. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much and good morning.
All right, Kingsley.
All right, but gentlemen, let's begin the conversation from Saudi Arabia, where the summit took place, and where President Buhari, of course, also had engagements with the leadership of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Your Excellency Ambassador, give us a sense. What was the Saudi motivation for the Future Investment Initiative? Is it part of the new wave of engagement with the African continent, as we have seen with Russia, with Japan, China, and India?
Well, Assalamu alaikum. This Future Investment Initiative called by the authority of Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabia is ready to help African countries. And of course, they have seen Russia, China, US have done their own way. So they really like to be fully involved in investing in African countries. So that's why they call this Future Investment Initiative meeting, which was held in Saudi Arabia. And they are really ready to see everything is materialized, particularly when my president met the king. They discussed a lot of bilateral talk. But later on, my president met with the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince has already made up his mind when he met with President of Nigeria that the country of Saudi Arabia is really ready to invest in all fields the Nigeria needs. So he even suggested that there should be a council between Nigeria and Saudi Arabia, which he said members of Saudi Arabia and members of Nigeria should form one council. And he suggested that they have to meet periodically at least twice a year. So this is the reason why Saudi Arabia and Mr. President, they met and took a decision for forming the council. So inshallah, the council will be set up by both Nigeria and Saudi Arabia. And very soon, immediately, Mr. President comes back from his tour in London. He will set up the peoples who will represent Nigeria in this council, and then to send to the people, to the authority of Saudi Arabia, to give their own people to form the council, so that the council will start working immediately, inshallah.
Ambassador Dudu, let's still remain with you. I'd like for you to enlighten us. What areas are we currently cooperating with Saudi Arabia? Perhaps we are just, breaking grounds into Saudi Arabia.
Well, previously, about a month ago, not a month, I think about 7-8 months ago, the Minister of Oil, previous Minister of Oil, and his entourage came here. They met with the Ambassador, Minister of Oil in Saudi Arabia here. They took a lot of decision, and then they reached a decision that MOU would be signed. And then the Saudi Arabian government, the king, the crown prince, and the ministers, they met. They approved that the MOU will be signed between Saudi Arabia and Nigeria on oil matters. So this is what we are looking forward. And then there are so many things between Nigeria and Saudi Arabia, which will come up, inshallah, as soon as possible.
Okay, Ambassador Issa Dudu, thank you very much there for your initial comments. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Now let's come back to our guest here with us in the studios, the Governor of Kebbi State. We earlier introduced him, and Malam Garba Shehu, who's Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media. Mr. Governor, you were on the President's entourage. Give us your feel of the summit in Saudi.
Well, I thought that Malam Garba Shehu and the ambassador will do better than I as the very brilliant spokesperson of Mr. President.
We have specific questions for him.
And the ambassador has captured it well, but I'm honored to be so invited and to be part of the trip. And I thank Mr. President for the opportunities given to governors across political divide to occasionally participate in trips with him to enhance Nigeria's economics, Nigeria's image. The Future Investment Initiative was put together by the country's sovereign wealth fund, called the Public Investment Fund, which is equivalent in conception with our own sovereign wealth fund in Nigeria, but the invitation to Mr. President was extended by King Faisal Ibn Abdul Aziz, Salman Ibn Abdul Aziz, the custodian of the two holy mosques. So this investment initiative talks about sustainable development, technology for good, and the vision of Saudi Arabia to reposition their economy by 2030. And it was, for me, it is a very, very commendable step taken by Mr. President to attend a futuristic event put together by a country with whom we share a lot of common development issues. Oil producers challenged by lower oil prices and the need to reposition the economy. So we have a lot to share. And it is a meeting which gives the president and the entourage a further inkling into what the investment world thinks, so that Nigeria can generate more investment. The Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia controls about $400 billion US. So this is a fund, as we found out, and given what they have done elsewhere, which can easily make decision if we can convince them to put 10, 20, or 30 billion in the Nigerian economy. And the president's commitment to talk to investors like this, in addition to other sovereign wealth funds who are there, is a very key moment for Nigeria to begin to mobilize the kind of investment that we needed to support Nigeria's growth. I, as a governor, feel very thrilled with the opportunity of such quantum of investment coming into Nigeria, because I know that apart from expanding our economy, it will also help my state directly.
Indeed, we will come to you, so that we'll now situate Kebbi State within the context of the visit. But let's bring in Malam Garba Shehu. Earlier on, I asked the ambassador if we are only breaking grounds into Saudi. And since this is a futuristic investment, what kind of cooperation have we been having with Saudi Arabia?
Well, I will first of all say that in Kingsley's initial engagement with the governor, he was not mistaken of his high expectations of the governor, because he sat in all of the meetings.
Indeed.
So he's in an excellent position to throw as much highlight as anybody could. The relationship between Nigeria and Saudi Arabia has been a long-standing one. And there has been engagement in trade, through culture and religion and all of that. Much of the trade has been informal. Okay. I don't have the numbers, but I believe that trade between Nigeria and Saudi Arabia will run into billions of US dollars annually.
When you say informal, how do you mean?
Well, because it is not structured trade that runs through your central bank and the banking systems and all of that. You know, consider the pilgrimage itself. It's a multi-billion naira engagement, visa fees, hotels, and all of that. So the thing then is to formalize the engagement and do things in a way that are beneficial to our own, two nations. You ask the question whether what have they done for us? What would we say? Saudi is the #1 oil producer in the world. And in OPEC, Saudi Arabia is the most influential member. And without being, I don't want to use the word psychophancy or whatever, Saudis command the respect of every OPEC member, including Nigeria. Because, look, if they want to throw the oil market into turmoil today, The Saudis have the capacity to do it, they can overproduce and all of that. So Nigeria has worked with them in international oil politics, and it has served our own interest. And don't forget, a number of times at several conjunctures, Nigeria had to be excused from cuts in oil production and all of that. So some of these things come arising from the kind of relationships that we have. Yes.
Malagaba Shehu, give us your own appreciation of the investment initiative.
Okay. You know, the thing about this is that, as the governor and the ambassador have said, it's also about projecting into the future. This was a get-together for leaders of nations, investors, and the innovators. So the whole idea is to think together, and certainly beyond Africa. It's a global get-together. As the introductory report you had said, is the Davos of the desert.
That's right.
So everyone there with innovation and the investment and all of that. So in effect, is a meeting of influencers globally in terms of economy and the direction of future investment. What are the sort of industries that we should be eyeing for the future, and where shall we be directing money to? And of course, in addition to engagement of the president in the summit, the bilateral engagements were equally as fruitful as anything could be between president and the king, president and the crown prince, and the oil and Nigeria's oil industry represented by the Minister of Petroleum and the GMD of the NNPC, the Minister of Investment and Trade, and all of that. So there have been so many meetings on the sides that are promising to, bring the kind of things that we want, interest of investors in critical infrastructure, oil and gas, and many others in the country.
I still want to take the advantage of our staying with you, because over time we've had you as a guest on Good Morning Nigeria, either via Skype when you are with the president at these summits, or upon your return. Alternatively, we have also had Femi Adesina, who is your colleague. China, Africa, Japan, Africa, Sochi, that was the last one. I believe that we had you. In India, we've had you. Now we're talking about the future investment initiative by Saudi Arabia. How would you sketch all of these engagements with regard to investment drive, bilateral and multilateral engagements by the president? Where would you situate this latest outing by President Buhari?
Well, you know that we as a people, Nigerians generally, I think there's the thing about us being very impatient, which is a plus also, because you need that impatience, the agitation, the drive to push, and get things done. A lot of Nigerians would seek immediate results from all of these engagements you're talking about. And it is possible that immediate results can come. As we have tried to illustrate in some discussion recently, for the fertilizer initiative initiated by the president, it had the effect of an immediate effect on the economy, because Nigeria stopped spending $200 million once the Moroccan phosphate was coming to import phosphate from fertilizer. 60 billion subsidy was ended, and the price of fertilizer, which had gone up to 11 to 13,000 per bag, had come down to 500, and is available all over the country. So the jinx has been broken. Some of these things would take months and years to manifest, to mature. But it is important that the engagement is sustained. Ajaokuta, 40-year-old scandal, because when you train 20,000 engineers in the hope of bringing them back to develop your steel industry, a lot of them are dead today because of hunger, non-salary payment, and lack of engagement. as Ajakuta will come to fruition, it will be complete. The smelter in Ikwadabasi, look at all of the rail projects, you know, and so therefore, without the sort of engagement you're talking about, you stay chained to your desk, you can't get anything done.
Stay chained as in a rehabilitation center.
Also, if we contextualize it, for global investors who have options to invest in different markets, who are desirous of investing in the long term, it is only competition and interest that sustain and help them in choosing one market or the other. So President Buhari, let's contextualize it, is saddled with one of the most challenging and toughest jobs in the world, because according to the World Bank, the challenge is to lift at least 100 million out of poverty, and that is what will begin to change the poverty picture. This has fallen on his lot, and what does he have to do to do that? Of the 7 most populous countries in the world, Nigeria being the 7th, I think he has the smallest federal budget, lower than Indonesia, lower than even Pakistan. Compared to Brazil, which is about 200 million people also, their federal budget is $659 billion for this year. We are under 30 billion. So it is commendable that Mr. President has been imaginative to say, let me go around the world and knock on all doors so that we can get investable funds in large numbers. And I think that is to borrow from my brother Garbashew, is more important than staying chained to a desk.
Okay, let's move on to Maiduguri Studios, where we have former ambassador to Pakistan, Ambassador Dauda Danladi. Ambassador, now, if you look at within the past couple of months, Mr. President has, of course, made trips to several world economies, and on my list, I have about 8. And he has the onerous task of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty, and as His Excellency has said, with a very slim budget. Now, can you justify for us Mr. President's economic shuttle and how, the nexus between that and his job of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty?
I think almost all has been said, but to lift 1 million Nigerians out of poverty, you require a robust funds to do that. And if I may just quickly take an analysis, comparative analysis of between Nigeria and Saudi Arabia, I think we will now appreciate what the president is trying to achieve. Saudi Arabia has proven reserve of about 266.2 billion barrels of crude oil. It produces about 12 million barrels per day. At the same time, Aramco, the oil company, refines about 5.4 million barrels per day. And according to experts, 1 barrel equals to about 168 liters. And if you compute that, it means Aramco produces about 1 billion liters of PMS daily, meeting its domestic needs and at the same time exporting to earn foreign exchange. Now, if you look at what we have in Nigeria, yes, it is said that our proven reserves about 37 billion barrels of crude oil. We have about 184 trillion cubic feet of gas in Nigeria. Now, if you look at our refineries, the refineries, their installed capacity, if they were working perfectly, if they are in perfect order, we have the capacity to refine about 445,000 barrels per day. Now, if you compute that to liters, according to experts, it means we will be producing about 74 million liters of petrol per day in Nigeria. At the cost of 145 naira, If you compute that, then you can now see what we will be earning daily in Nigeria. Now, according to PPRA, our daily consumption is about 56 million liters. And as you know, for the past 15 to 20 years, our refineries have been producing below installed capacity, about 15 to 20% of our requirement, which means we import basically 70 to 80% of our domestic requirement. Now, that is a huge amount of money that government is spending. According to the recent Senate Committee's report, the petroleum downstream, recently, it disclosed that Nigeria, over the past 6 years, have spent about 11 trillion naira for payment of outstanding claims to importers. Now, another alarming figure was the one released by the National Bureau of Statistics that says that in 2018 alone, Nigeria have expended the sum of 2.98 trillion for payment of our subsidy. So when you put that against the vision of the present government to take 100 million people out of Nigeria, that subsidy alone, according to experts, it is enough to have built 27,000 megawatts of electricity. It is enough to have built hospital, 1,000 bed hospital capacity in each of the 774 local government areas, and perhaps have enough funds that will boost the agricultural revolution that the present government is pursuing. So I think the engagement of Mr. President with Saudi Arabia is desirable, because if you look at what His Excellency, the Governor, and Alhaji Garba Shehu have said, the Sovereign Wealth Fund is one of the largest in the world. A fund that has a pool of about $400 million, a fund that in the near future will hit about, in asset terms, it will hit about $2 trillion. I think it is a good, veritable platform for us to see how we can tap. Now, the interest, as has been said, based on Garba Shehu's press release, is that they are interested in the oil and gas sector of Nigeria. And I think there's huge potentials in that place. Because Africa today, you have over 300 million people that are living without electricity. And gas is an important component for energy, and at the same time for agricultural development. Talking about fertilizer, it is a veritable ingredient for the production of fertilizer. So I think the engagement is commendable, and we hope that going forward, with the setting of the Saudi-Nigeria Council, we believe they will work out the modalities of how to engage, and at the same time look at the various areas. It is interesting that they are interested in technology, and investing in technology. They are interested in agriculture. They are interested in education. And I think going forward, we have an alternative source that would contribute in accelerating the pace of development in Nigeria. If you can remove subsidy today in Nigeria, because in the 2019 budget, the sum of about 320 billion was earmarked for payment of subsidy. And I believe possibly similar funds will be allocated for the 2020 budget. Now, if you can remove that, eliminate that, I think going forward, we will be able to achieve the vision and goals of Mr. President. Now, I have to also bring in the issue of our population, our growing population. By the year 2030, we are looking at a country that will have about over 300 million people. And there is no way Nigeria could sustain, could achieve sustained economic growth, paying this kind of huge subsidy for fuel importation. So it is good news, and we look forward to the repositioning of our refineries.
All right, thank you very much, Ambassador Donlade. We'll return to you in our Maiduguri Network Center. Let's go back again via Skype to Ambassador Issa Dudu, who is Nigeria's envoy to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where he is with us. Ambassador, tell us something. Earlier, you were talking about one of the highlights of President Buhari's engagement with the leadership of Saudi Arabia, indicating the formation of a strategic council. Now, is this the same as a binational commission in the first instance? And therefore, from your encounters, what has been the modality of engagement between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Nigeria? Because we know that we have a number of binational commissions.
Well, as far as this council to be formed by Nigeria and Saudi Arabia is concerned, is that the council will meet and find out ways where Saudi Arabia will come in to invest and make sure the investment will help the whole country. And then, in this modality of the council will first meet and then draw the map, the line of what the Nigerian want and what the Saudi Arabia would be able to help Nigeria on all its needs. And then, I don't really like to preempt what the council will put down to continue to pursue. But at the same time, you know, we have many challenges in Nigeria. We need so many sectors where not only Saudi Arabia, but on this particular thing, Saudi Arabia will be able to invest in exploration of oil, particularly in northern Nigeria. We have many places where we have oil, but yet to be explored. But if you say Sokoto, or you say Kogi, or you say Adamawa, or you say River Chad Basin, we have oil. So if the council meets, it will pinpoint these things to the authority. And then we have a lot of things to do about railway. Now the railway are saying from Lagos, Ibadan, Abuja, Kano. I think here the council, even though I have told you I don't really like to preempt what the council will do, but it's very important Nigeria to link all the states of Nigeria from Abuja to all capital states in Nigeria with rail line, so that people will travel safely and then our roads will last longer. And if you go to power is what is a great problem to Nigeria. Of course, they started dealing with the Mambila and then with other Shiroro and other places. But if the Saudi Arabia comes, I'm sure the council will deal with the quick intervention of power, because power is very important for the development of any country. Without power, the development of country is, I can tell you, zero. Nigeria needs this. Immediately, I learned that the government of Nigeria involved Germany. I hope there should be a quick intervention of power. Let us say we have 50 megawatts on each state. Each state to have 50 megawatts. If it has it, it will allocate it merely to industries, because we have millions of teeming youth and other people who have no work. And then if that is power, industry will be set up, and then our teeming people will come and work. And all our monies, which we are changing to hard currency to buy things, we will start manufacturing them in this country. Because We are a consumer country. We don't at all manufacture anything. So that's why we are having a lot of problems. People have no work, and then because there is no power. If there is this power, as I told you, I'm sure millions of youth, millions of people who have no work in Nigeria will work. I'm sure Saudi Arabia, not only on this side, it is ready to invest in all fields Nigeria is needing to help the country.
We'll get back to you, but as you've said, you've given us quite a number of hints there. But again, let's bring in Malam Garba Shehu. The Strategic Council will not sit in vacuum. There must be AOIs, areas of interest. And we are told that agriculture and ICT are the vehicles, of course, for poverty alleviation. Beyond oil and gas, what are our priorities? We must have had our priorities before going to Saudi Arabia. What will be the priorities of this council, and do they have timeline to, commence?
Well, there are known priorities, all right, but in the wisdom of the president, he set up a committee of three with regard to the oils, engagement in the oil sector. Minister of State Petroleum, the Minister of Trade and Investment, and the GMD of NNPC. He said, three of you sit down and draw up the priority areas for engagement in the oil sector. Now, yes, it is true the engagement is well beyond oil and gas. Because, look, Saudi Arabia has done something which Nigeria wants to do, or we are currently doing, and the hope of really getting to where they are. They have enormous resources in oil and gas, and they have used earnings from those sectors to diversify the economy. So Saudi Arabia has invested heavily in petrochemical industries, and in agriculture, actually, they are the leading supplier of dairy and agricultural products to the India and Middle East. And so therefore, there is something to learn. There is so much to pick from them. Agriculture is an important area of engagement. Petrochemicals, that's where they have gone to India with the 40 billion they said. Last month they said actually they want to put 100 billion into India. And what they are saying is, you Nigeria, they told our president, the governor was seated there, we want to do the same thing we did in India, Pakistan, and Indonesia in Nigeria. So yes, it is for us to say this is what we want.
In what form? In what form is this support coming? Is it in the form of exchange of expertise, or in the form of loans, or what form is it coming?
Well, this will be defined in due course. However, if you are talking about investment, they are bringing in money in order to, for instance, I know one project that will most likely feature in this discussion is the AKK gas pipeline. I think preliminary discussions have already begun. That gas line from Ajaokuta to Abuja, Kaduna, and Kano. The enormous gas resources available to the nation, which have been used to develop industry in the coastal area of the country, would be piped up country. And all of these things, when they come up, they will also branch out and all of that. So there is so much opportunity and that we can do together. But I think that the committee that the president has in mind would obviously be prioritizing. When they come, they will look for areas where the money will bring returns to them. I believe that if there are loans that we require, why not, if it's coming at rates that are really substantially reduced in terms of interest.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Garba Shehu. Mr. Governor, what was the sense you got in terms of the future interaction between Nigeria and Saudi Arabia arising out of this summit? Now, are we targeting government investment or government-private sector? And then even if it is government, as a state governor, what did you feel, what did you touch as being relevant to you or indeed other state governments?
I think all that has happened is relevant to us in the sense that what was very clear is the high respect with which the Saudis accord to our Mr. President, both the King Salman and the Crown Prince. And that is one of the major elements that are supporting our diplomacy. We have a president who is well respected internationally, who is able to communicate what he's been doing. Our competitiveness is improving. And because of that, both government to government initiatives we have support to market them, and then private sector investment, which Mr. President is prioritizing. We should remember that the federal government has adopted a national economic diplomacy initiative a while ago, where the target is to showcase Nigeria as an investment destination, as a country where global players can put their money, can have certain safety for their investment, can be assured of due process, legal protection, and undue protection against any undue appropriation. Mr. President emphasized the anti-corruption accountability gains, which supports the quest for private investors. So I believe what we are seeing is an increasing appetite for both government to government interventions and private sector investment. And one of the clear things that came up in the discussion with the Crown Prince is agriculture, food, and that is of direct interest to me among other governors, because each of the Nigerian states, 36 of the state FCT, have agricultural produce that we need investment in. We need technology to support what we are doing so that we gain higher yields. We need markets for some of those produce. It can be sesame seed, which is consumed a lot in Saudi Arabia. It can be ginger. It can be soya beans. It can be goats, where a lot of women can produce goats that Saudi Arabian markets like. So we see the potential of in our agriculture, and this will benefit almost all states. A lot of states have opportunities in the mining sector, which is one of the areas that Saudi Arabian Investment Fund is looking to do much. Mr. President emphasized, as always, the important terminology that one of the advantages that Nigeria have is our huge absorptive capacity. Nigeria has the ability to support as a country investments in hundreds of billions of dollars, so that can generate returns higher than what is obtainable in equivalent markets. And the whole initiative, provision of security, repositioning of the economy, public accountability, are measures that are designed to support that. And I think the world is paying attention. And I believe Kebbi will benefit enormously from that.
Let me still stay with you, Your Excellency, and be a little more direct now. I know you have said agriculture, of course, is close to your heart. And indeed, we know your capacity for rice. Well, I've been privileged to have a taste of the lake rice, the collabo you did with Lagos. So beyond rice, which area are you also looking for expertise and support? Which other, agri product are you expecting, to develop in Kebbi?
We want to do ethanol from both sugar and cassava. We have a joint venture with NNPC that is doing ethanol from cassava, and we have started. We hope by next year we'll produce the first ethanol oil for commercial vehicles. And we want to do much, much more. We want to produce hundreds of millions of liters of ethanol from both cassava and sugarcane. We want to compete in the soya beans market. That is one of the things that we feel we are able to compete as a state, even with Brazil in Saudi Arabia. So, but we need a lot of money to support the transformation and the supply chain. Being far away from the coast, there are a lot of supply chain disadvantages that we need longer term investment and technology to support. And groundnut oil and all other oils that honey, we are areas that we believe we can produce and market and export in the billions.
Indeed, I do patronize honey from Kebbi. Sorry, Kingsley.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
I was just wondering, Mr. Governor, in evaluating issues of this nature, we always make reference to implementation. It is one thing, you've had these MOUs, which memoranda of understanding, and so on and so forth. And if you were to go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the Ministry of Justice, I'm sure you will have a stack of such MOUs. So going forward, starting therefore, say at the state level, subnational entities, what, in your opinion, will be the effective mechanisms for bringing these understandings, as it were, into fruition? I mean, you've had all of these deals, as it were. Is it the Governors Forum? Is it the National Economic Council? How do you kickstart?
I think the platforms have been created. We have a very robust National Economic Council, which is an appropriate mechanism. We have task forces. But more importantly, Mr. President had in all his trips taking governors along from across the political parties, and he have incorporated them into processes. We are a federation. When we see things that benefit our states, we should also fight. We know that the Nigerian Saudi Council is going to be created. Governors are going to push and present what will benefit our states as aggressively as the federal government, so that we compete and we position and to ensure that we generate investment that will support our individual states' quest for development.
All right, Your Excellency, distinguished gentlemen, let's take a break now. Of course, just to remind you, we're looking at the takeaways from Mr. President's visit to Saudi Arabia, which of course has been described as very, very important and iconic. Go away. Thank you for joining us again on Good Morning Nigeria Live on the network service of NTA. And of course, we appreciate our guest here, Governor of Kebbi State, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar Bagudu. We have a special assistant to the President on media and publicity, Garba Shehu. We also have two ambassadors, one in Saudi Arabia, that's the current one, Ambassador Isa Dudu. And of course, we have former ambassador to Pakistan, Ambassador Dauda Dandadi. Thank you once again for staying tuned. But let's quickly take our tweets. We have a number of them. Kingsley, would you like to start off?
Festus Akinboyewa has this tweet. Nigeria desperately needs foreign investment, and President Buhari's trip to Saudi Arabia is one way of showing the world that the country, that's Nigeria, is open for business. And Saudi government's promise to invest in our oil sector is great. We need more of this high-level economic diplomacy.
All right, and Multana Farouk tweets, President Muhammadu Buhari's multilateral outcome with the other countries is always robust and palatable. He should always try to remind those countries frequently as a follow-up to keep to the agreement. Implementation is paramount in all of this. God bless Nigeria. Kingsley.
David Jack Solomon, one major takeaway from the president's trip to Saudi Arabia is his request to his host government to allow Aramco visit Nigeria and carry out a diagnostic assessment of the NNPC refineries, pipelines, and other infrastructure in order to improve the efficiency in the oil and gas sector. I was just wondering, I think that perhaps the note of caution also should be sounded here. It says carry out a diagnostic assessment. NNPC on its own already has a framework for revitalizing, the refineries, and if that is already ongoing, I think they are kick-starting in the first quarter of 2020. So what then would you want the Saudis to do? Piggyback on that or take on a green-free project?
That's a big question, Kingsley. But this tweet is coming from Mike Ayako. And he says, kudos to PMB on his determined zeal to fix our economy. This has been demonstrated by his globetrotting in the recent past, including one to Saudi Arabia. We need foreign investments in Nigeria in all areas. This will go a long way in complementing our technical know-how.
Now, Law Alpha say President Buhari has been globe-trotting. Oftentimes, when globe-trotting it sounds pejorative. It's as if you are gallivanting. So I think better for us to say President Buhari has been traveling in order to fix our collective economy, battered and plundered by previous administrations, particularly the oil sector. We can improve the worth of our oil products for greater revenue generation.
And Utolo Sunday tweets, I believe the trip to Saudi Arabia will yield positive results, considering the kind of MOUs signed with development partners. Nigeria must be great again, and we share in your optimism.
Now, Jones Ferrari, the president is doing remarkably well. Let's hope that through the travels, good things will come to Nigeria. We, the people, must duly involve ourselves in the president's plan to revive our country. That's the only way we can achieve more. And
Dele Jack Solomon, President Buhari's trip to Saudi Arabia will usher in a new age of strategic cooperation between Nigeria and Saudi that will promote cooperation in enforcement, development, trade, security, and intelligence, as well as counter-terrorism. These both countries must not fail to do.
We already had one from Law Afasi, so let's keep the second. Badamasi Haruna Adamu tweets, as usual, it's not always about a trip, but commitment to the partnership and putting in place institutions that will help in the implementation.
And this one says, Jesse Wogby says, many Nigerians are in the Saudi prisons waiting to be executed for drug offenses. Is there intervention? How would the bilateral agreement regulate modern-day slavery of Nigerians in Saudi, perpetrated by cabals operating as travel agencies in West Africa?
Ishaq Abdullahi, we are short. What are the short and long-term benefits that Nigeria will expect from the bilateral agreement signed? And how would the bilateral agreement improve the crude oil sector of the economy and general operations of the petroleum industry?
Indeed, that's another question for our guest. Aramco is, this is coming from Omogbala Hobabs. Aramco is the acknowledged world's biggest oil production company. Its synergy with Nigeria's NNPC will definitely breathe a new leaf of life into the cooperation. We need all available MOUs that will better the lots of Nigerians in the long run.
Now, Akeju Olagbaju tweets, we need to take further advantage of selling our potentials to Saudi Arabia. In Riyadh 2013, we put up investment in water resources for the Saudis to invest in irrigated farming of fruits and vegetables in Nigeria, but this is still waiting on the shelf. Government can revive it.
And Abdul tweets, while the visit was seen as very important to Nigeria, it is hoped that all the agreements and engagements reached will translate into concrete development. We must also do our own homework to get things done.
All right, this is coming from Mohammed Abdul Malik. It's obvious that Mr. President trips so far are desirable, but the heads of MDAs, that is ministries, departments, and agencies, are not following up to implement the deals because they appear to lack understanding of the president's vision. That's coming from Abdul Malik. Those are the tweets that we can accommodate in the meantime. I was just wondering, let's go clear to Ambassador Danladi in our Maiduguri Network Center. You can see him there on the right side of your screen. Ambassador Danladi, well, tell us something. Saudi Arabia on its own has very strong diplomatic relations with the U.S. And the involvement of the U.S. in the Saudi economy is enormous on its own. So what can we look forward to much more realistically from Saudi Arabia? Is it expectation of providing expertise or providing the direly needed funding that could then help catalyze the various sectors that will require their intervention, whether in infrastructure or in particular agriculture?
I think you are right. Saudi Arabia has invested massively in the U.S., in France, in Germany, in South Korea, and many other countries. And therefore, it has a capacity to really contribute in investing in Nigeria. I think, I believe that gas will be one of the areas that Saudi Arabia would spend money, put in their money, because just recently, I think a few months ago, the president has signed a deal with Siemens for the production of, I think, about 25,000 megawatt of electricity within the next 5 years. And I think one of the major components will be gas. Again, as you know, Saudi Arabia imports virtually all its agricultural requirements, even though yeah, it carries out some agricultural production, but it is at minimal level. And Nigeria, with about 74 million arable land for agricultural development, I strongly believe that they will also invest in the agricultural sector of Nigeria, especially in the areas of machineries and equipment. They have also agreed, I think, in the areas of security, there is a need really for the armed forces of Nigeria and the police to have the required tools and equipment that will assist them in finally dealing with the menace of terrorism and combating insecurity. And I think going forward, the sovereign wealth of Saudi Arabia is, as I've said, is one of the largest in the world. And the prospects are enormous. If we can reposition our refineries, if they can help us to reposition our refineries that can produce 74 million liters of PMS daily, I think that will go a long way in saving Nigeria foreign exchange hard currency that is being spent to subsidize the importation of petroleum products, and that money can be channeled towards accelerating the pace of development in Nigeria.
Claire, I was just wondering, I know you take this along. Ambassador is saying, and the point has been made that, okay, the Saudis might take an interest in our refineries. Those refineries have provided enormous challenges in terms of management, over the decades, and we have seen the state in which they are today. Earlier, when responding to one of the tweets, we talked about greenfield projects. Is it not possible, to get the Saudis to be more interested in greenfield projects, say refineries? We have a number of dormant licenses that were granted, for the establishment of refineries, and with the exception of Dangote today, every other thing else we keep hearing are modular refineries, which seem also not to have taken off the ground. Okay.
Who are you directing?
Well, I'll just let the governor let the governor respond to that. Yes.
Well, I think maybe Gorbachev should have mentioned it. The Crown Prince actually mentioned their interest in having opportunities to invest in areas which are secured in Nigeria. And that obviously involves new. But let's remind ourselves, this investment, sovereign wealth funds, became successful because they are very wise. They invest in greenfield, they invest in what generates return. So whatever is commercially sensible, whatever will provide return for the money, I believe is something that we can entice them and get them interested into. And like Gorbachev said, already the appropriate mechanism has already been set up for that. We have good relationship with Saudi Arabia by virtue of our OPEC relationship. And what we saw that at the meetings was a very good bond between our own Minister of Petroleum and the Saudi Minister of Petroleum. So those are all ingredients, and the very active GMD also of the NMPC, who we believe have what it takes to encourage and interest both Aramco and the Sovereign Wealth Fund of those critical areas of the Nigerian energy sector, not just refineries, our gas sector that will support our quest.
All right, thank you, Your Excellency. Madam Gorbachev, someone raised the issue about implementation. I think Kingsley also, hinted at that. And ever since my mind, kept going to Agua, and Nigeria's, inability to benefit, immensely from that, partnership. Do we have the capacity? What is Nigeria's capacity to also implement this, understanding, and so that it's not like a wobbly kind of understanding?
Really, that's a big issue there, and it should worry Nigerians. Kingsley has said of the litany of some of these things, bilaterals and MOUs. I think that the difference that the president has tried to make in the second term of his administration is to clearly give a tone that is target driven. Don't forget that when he had a retreat for his new ministers, he said to them, after this retreat, in 2 weeks' time, all of you will sign the bond. You and every minister and his PAMSEC would sign on to a contract with the administration on the delivery of given objectives. And the thing that has been less spoken about is the fact that failure to meet on those targets would fetch consequences for whoever has failed to do so. So government has all sorts of plans, a delivery unit, an active one in the presidency, and of monitoring. And to be also helpful in this direction is the fact that the president has been very selective in his choices of priority, focusing on very key ones that so we don't divide our attention so thinly on the ground and then we don't achieve anything. So look at all of these things. Infrastructure is really very key to all of the things because they are the foundation upon which the entire superstructure would rest. And so expect that if there are railways, if there are refineries, roads, bridges, and industry, all of these things would get the attention that they duly deserve.
Okay, Madam Garbashew, thanks a lot. Let's return to Governor Bagudu. Still on the challenge of implementation and how, therefore, to readily realize what has come out of the latest engagement of the president, in this case being the investment initiative. Agriculture is significant, no doubt about that. What we know of public policy formulation and implementation in the country is that sometimes we just have layers and layers upon layers, and after a while we tend to discard what went on before. For instance, what is currently on the table is the National Livestock Transformation Plan. In what ways, from your engagements in Saudi Arabia, could this be an opportunity for the Saudis to say, look, we want to invest in this because of the enormous potentials that are inherent in this transformation plan and the fact that it's, so to speak, already a going concern?
I think I alluded to it earlier that among other issues, Saudi Arabia is a major livestock market, particularly goats. And some time ago, the Northern Governors Forum sent a delegation to both the Islamic Development and the Saudi Arabian Ministry of Agriculture to see whether we can key into we can get multi-year memorandum of understanding that will see us supplying goats, Nigerian states supplying goats for the Saudi Arabian market because they consume goats in the millions, and the traditional markets, Yemen, Somali, have run out of the kind of goats that are highly valued in those economies. So yes, it's one of the areas, and in general, we believe any investment, like I said, states are willing to compete. States are already competing with each other, given the policy direction and support that President Muhammadu Buhari has graciously approved. The Central Bank of Nigeria has been generous with funding, and states are competing both in the livestock sector already and the farming sector and fisheries sector, so that we achieve our objectives.
Let me one of the items that Madam Garbashew teed off, of course, as take away from Mr. President's visit, and indeed, is the issue of terrorism. And I understand that, of course, the prominent rulers, made mention of the fact that with the fall of terrorism in Syria, African continent, of course, might be vulnerable. In what way are we? What kind of support are we expecting from Saudi in this regard?
I think we have always had a good relationship on our broad understanding, because even our conception of Islam moderate, tolerant Nigeria and Saudi Arabia has been in tandem. And we have been supporting each other historically in fight against extreme ideology. And I believe with their capacity, with their experience, with their resources and our own experience, and given what they say, we are expecting to see more support in that regard.
Okay, I don't know, Kingsley, I know you want to go. Malam Garba Shehu, you have any more points to add?
Yeah, just to add to the fact that leaders from all of the things that have been agreed to between Nigeria and Saudi Arabia, it is important that the leaders of the two countries have agreed that they will meet at least once in a year to take an overview of the activities of the council that is going to be set up and to resolve whatever key issues that need to be resolved at that level. I think it is important. So, and that should address the concern of implementation that Nigerians are raising.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Garba Shehu. Let's return one more time to Ambassador Issa Dudu Vaskap in Saudi Arabia as Nigeria's envoy to the kingdom. Now, based on your understanding of the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, what, in your opinion, is the temperament of the Saudi investment, sovereign investment fund that Nigeria, should take maximum advantage of? And then, of course, if there are other sides that we need to avoid, we can readily avoid them. We have our own sovereign wealth fund, but it's still growing. How does the Saudi sovereign wealth fund operate? What kind of areas would be, again, if you take the Nigerian impatience, as Garba Shehu said earlier, what would be the low-hanging fruits?
Well, as far as this is concerned, since the council will be set up, then after forming the council, they are going to study everything between themselves. And then the king and the crown prince has already committed, particularly the crown prince, after the meeting with Mr. President, he committed that he is going to look into the council's activities. And he is ready to make sure that the council achieve its goal. Because it's not always setting the council. The activities of the council, what it needs, the modality, and then see what the Nigerian government and the people of Nigeria will achieve and will get. So, as far as this is concerned, the council will set up everything, and then it will, from time to time, inform the crown prince, and from time to time it will inform the members of the council in Nigeria will inform Mr. President. And then they will talk and see the way forward and advise the both authorities on exactly what they will do. And then don't forget, the crown prince is committed to see that the implementation of all the council discuss and achieve will be fully implemented. So that's the reason why this council is very, very important, and it will set by the crown prince. The crown prince, if he says this is what will be done and this is what he will do, definitely the council will implement it, will do it, and then to achieve the desired goal.
All right.
Yeah, we're clear. Yes,
Yes.
sorry, we had mixed up his last name. We referred to him as Ambassador Issa Dudu. Yeah, Dudu instead of Dodo. Well, Your Excellency, Ambassador to Saudi Arabia, I would like to appreciate you for being with us on the program this morning. You joined us via Skype from Saudi Arabia. All right, and then we also would like to thank our other guest who was with us from Maiduguri Network Center, Nigeria's former ambassador to Pakistan. That's Ambassador Dauda Danladi. Ambassador Danladi, thanks a lot for your contributions to our discussion.
Okay, Kinsley, just the last one from Malam Garba Shehu. You talked about the amount of investment that Saudi had made in other countries, India and other. Do we have an idea of, in monetary terms, what they have in mind for Nigeria?
No, it has not been disclosed, but if they will give us all the money in the Sovereign Wealth Fund, so be it.
And they get their returns as well.
Well,
all right, on that note, we'd like to appreciate Malam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant of the President on Media. Thank you for being with us on the program. We also would like to thank His Excellency, the Governor of Kebbi State, Alhaji Atiku Bagudu, for being part of our discussion this morning.
Thank you.
Indeed, he flew in last night just for this program, so we really appreciate you, sir.
Appreciate that. All right, thanks a lot. Let's go over now to our sports desk.